often there are some bad things that can happen in change. Let's be clear about that. But also, you can survive everything that's going on in your world. And so it circles back to the first thing, take chances, try different things, because you can handle whatever the worst thing is that's going to come out of any of it. The urban legend is that it was a massive technology fail. Turns out it was a change fail. And so it was not driven from the top why it was necessary. And so it was really interesting and a really good insight into why it's really important to get the top-down alignment. I think until people have had something that has miserably failed potentially, that they don't really get the power of change. How do you paint a picture of when things don't go well? And how do you bring people together at the beginning of projects and guide this through, bringing everybody along, the PMs, the businesses, everybody else, and all the relevant stakeholders? Paint the picture.
Welcome to Change Leadership Conversations, where we dive into what it takes to lead change in today's disruptive and fast-paced world. I'm Yvonne Ruke Akpoveta, founder of the Change Leadership. We create change leadership training, conferences, content, courses, and community to support professionals and organizations. This conversation comes from the Change Leadership Conference, where I had the opportunity to sit down for a fireside chat with Michelle Joliat. Michelle is a Senior Vice President at Ontario's Teachers Pension Plan and has spent her career leading large-scale digital transformation, technology delivery, and organizational change across major organizations including RBC and BMO. In this conversation, Michelle shares lessons from her career and change leadership journey. We explore the role of leadership alignment, the realities of AI in the workplace, and what it takes to build a credible and trusted brand as a change leader. I invite you to hit the follow button and stay connected with our change leadership community. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be here with all of you today.
I remember the first time that I heard you speak was at an ACMP event. This was a while back. Then you were BMO. And I don't know if anybody remembers, we had Michelle at the Change Leadership Conference a few years back before COVID.
That seems like ages ago.
And so much has happened since then. So tell us about your journey. Let's start with that.
Quickly, I have a Master of Science. I always thought I was going to be a doctor. When I pivoted from that, I did my MBA, spent 12 years in management consulting, one of the big global firms out of Boston, ran my own firm for a couple of years, and then relocated back to Toronto, joined RBC and was there for 6 years, leading digital in wealth, and then moved over to BMO, where I ran digitization, robotics, and process transformation in wealth there for 2.5 years. And then I've been at Ontario Teachers Pension Plan for 5.5. I head up product and delivery, was actually responsible for not only move to a product model, but also I did the orchestration of moving 500 people in tech to the product model that we launched in April of 21. So I now head up 18 product squads that deliver all technology across teachers, everything from trading all the way to our corporate systems. I also have the Agile Enablement Office. I've got the PMO, change management, process transformation, all the business analysts, and I'm responsible for the work product of about 330 people.
You say all of that so smoothly. I just did this and I did this and I did this. And we really want to get to the brass tacks. So let's start with, when you think about your top 3 lessons, when you think about your journey, what would those be?
Yeah, I think early on, I learned very quickly to not say no to things. You don't know where your opportunities are going to come. And so when I moved to the States and I moved into management consulting, I said, I don't want to be in the aviation practice and I don't want to be in retail. For some reason, I had it in my head that I wasn't analytical enough and these were going to be really hard industries to be in. And then I quickly moved into my first airline in bankruptcy. And then I went to Delta Airlines and helped them get out of bankruptcy over 11 months in 2006. And then I went to United, and then I went to Alaska Airlines. And what I learned through that is you can do anything that you want to do. Don't put boundaries around things. I learned, I got my people, I was promoted in that group, and I learned a ton about myself, but also about an industry that I'd never been in. So I think keep your eyes open. I also have 2 mantras, and if not me, then who? And that's applicable to everyday life. When you've got tough stuff that's going on and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to do this, or I can't do this. And I can't spend the time to come up here and speak today. And you're like, if not you, then who? And the other is, what's the worst thing that can happen? And this is pretty relevant to change management and thinking about things. Often there are some bad things that can happen in change. Let's be clear about that. But also, you can survive everything that's going on in your world. And so I think it circles back to the first thing: take chances, try different things, because you can handle whatever the worst thing is that's going to come out of any of it.
Interesting that you say you've learned not to say no. There's also this other mantra around that goes to say, stop saying yes to everything. So how do you balance not saying yes to everything and not saying no as well?
Yeah.
Because what helps you balance it
Well,
out?
I think there's differences between saying yes to everything in a personal context too, right? And drawing boundaries. I got a new leader 3 weeks ago, a new chief technology officer from outside our organization. It's the first time I've ever had a boss that's come in from the outside in any place I've ever been. And he sent 7 emails on the long weekend. And I said, nope, not responding to those. That is the line that I'm crossing. I have young kids and I'm like, no, this is my long weekend. And so that's okay to say no to and draw your own personal boundaries within projects, within work that you are doing. I think it's absolutely okay to keep people on track, focus, and say no to those sort of things. But I think the personal challenges at work, the new opportunities, back to the what's the worst thing that can happen, right? Like I've never had a 5-year plan. I admire people that do, but I think the way that I've been circuitous in my career is all because of like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do this. How hard can this be?
I like that. Do you feel it's easier for you to say no to 70 emails at the weekend because of where you are in your career? What's about that person who is still trying to make their mark, still trying to build their brand, and they're scared to say no, because what if I don't respond to this email? What does it do for my career?
No, and that's a great question. I also think that coming from management consulting, I'd be a total hypocrite if I didn't say it. There are years of my life where I would leave brunches because I had to go home and work, or I would not go out for events. So I have very much been on for most of my career, and I have enough confidence at this point that I'm like, you know what, I will get back to you. If there was anything urgent, I absolutely would have responded. But I think that's the boundary that I like cautiously am drawing right now. And yeah, it's hard for me. It's hard for me not to get to the computer and respond, but nothing is on fire at 6:30 a.m. on Saturday of a long weekend. I have enough confidence now to be able to say, you will get that and you will get it on Tuesday.
Oh, let's switch gear a little bit to change. So change management, change leadership has been a core part of what you're doing it yourself. You're now having teams doing it, teams reporting into you. So what's that lean into change management, especially as we evolve in the new world of work now?
I think I'll back up and I'll say the first time that I really noticed that change was an opportunity, but also a significant challenge. In 2014, I founded the first Agile Lab at RBC. My COO was with all the COOs across the bank, and the CEO said, I've heard about this Agile thing. I want to try it. Who wants to do it? And so my EVP put up his hand and here's $10 million to go try it. And he turned to me and he goes, go figure this out. And so I was like, no. And also I had no idea what he was talking about. So I was like, sure, I got this. No idea. So that was the first time I got pulled into tech. And I think that was the turning point in the rest of my career as I know it. So I filled out the ADCAR ProSci model. I'm certified too. So I went through it. They were like, what are all these questions? I answered out this huge form. And I get to the end of it and they're like, so what is the ultimate place that you're trying to get to in this journey? And we are building a goals-based planning tool at RBC Wealth that's actually still used there, my GPS. And I was like, I have no idea where we're going because it's agile and I don't have a clue where this is going to go. And they're like, we can't help you. And I was like, are you kidding? I need help. And so I was like, okay, I got to do this myself. And we went out every week. We did weekly sprints, which is ridiculous. And every week we went out to 100 advisor teams across North America with what we built and to get feedback and to iterate and to put that into what we were developing. And so I was like, okay, I got to own this because this tool was going out to 4,000 advisors across North America. And it wasn't just about how are we going to use this tool, but it's, are we going to use this on iPads with our clients? And at the time it was like, how do you turn around an iPad that's a personal tool to get others incorporated into it? Or do you have a desktop screen that you turn and they're going to be able to input things at home? And so the change was not just to our internal team, it was also to all of the clients that all of those advisors deal with. So this was something that could have failed miserably if we didn't lean in immediately. And so I think that was my first realization around, whoa, this is really big and really impactful.
And what's it been like leading change management teams? One of the questions that we got prior to this, when you think about the evolution of change management from when you started building that to now leading teams and where we are now with even change leadership, what are your thoughts?
Consistency, I think, is key. And people look to me to walk the talk and be consistent with the messaging. I think knowing the best fit approach, is it a top-down change that we have to put in? Is it from the bottom up? Is it hybrid? Is it a stick? Is it a carrot? I actually heard the phrase an orange stick recently. I was like, that's not a thing. How are you going to put this in? Securing alignment at the top first is super important. And that's my job, to align across the executive team around the ownership and accountability for the tools that we're putting in. And because most of what I do is involving putting in technology and having it used and putting it in for our investment teams, we've got to have that alignment on what are we trying to achieve, what does success look like, and how are we going to drive this adoption across our investment division and all the different teams in it. And so before I got to teachers, they'd put in a CRM in 2017 called eFront. And apparently it was a colossal failure. And so before we started putting in a new tool, when I got to teachers, I was like, okay, we're going to debrief on what happened, because the urban legend is that it was a massive technology fail. Turns out it was a change fail. And so it was not driven from the top of the investment division around why it was necessary to put all of your meetings in, what were they doing with pipeline. And so it was really interesting and a really good insight into why it's really important to get the top-down alignment, modeling the mindset and not just the messaging. And senior leaders must live the change. And this is something that's important for everybody to see. So I think visible actions, prioritization, consistent reinforcement to our teams and across the organization, and in multiple ways and multiple times. This isn't something that, as you all know, it's not one and none. And so start early and continue through the entire process, I think is really important. Being decisive, but also listening and being agile. So go in with thoughts on why it's really important to execute something, but also listen to the feedback you're getting, because it's not going to be a straight path to getting this done. And when you hit the bumps along the road, how are you going to adapt and how are you going to lean in and understand what people are telling you?
You said a word, alignment, and I want to see how that looks for you when it comes to leading from the top. Because most times going to the organization, or maybe as change leaders, and we're trying to get buy-in from the top. How do you get the attention of your colleagues? If you had to give us a tip today to say, when working with senior stakeholders, you're working with CEOs, fellow SVPs, what's that secret sauce in terms of leading from the top to get the alignment and buy into the change?
It's understanding who the key stakeholders are and bringing them along the journey early. Having the vision collectively, and also it's my accountability to get the tool in, to get things running smoothly, but it is jointly our accountability to drive this together. And so having a collective front, we are in the process of rolling out a new strategy. Along with that strategy, we have 4 plans that go with them: the tech plan, the data plan, the reputation plan, and the talent plan. And so part of the tech and data plans, which I headed up, there is a responsibility for an interaction model to be delivered by the end of this year. And so how are investments, finance, and technology going to work together? And what is the interaction model so that we've got this top-down alignment and this shared vision that we communicate? So it is not throw it over the fence to tech and see what comes up and good luck and hope it all goes well and yada. If I'm doing this for you and it has been prioritized in the enterprise planning cycle, we collectively are on the hook to do this. And so I think that translating the vision into the relevance for the organization is super important. Starting with shared outcomes and not just the plan, and what's in it for people. And so the executive layer has one vision around whatever we have to do, cutting heads or saving money or driving something to the finish line. But people really want to know what's in it for them, as you all know, on day to day. What's in it for me? What's going to happen to my job? What's going to happen? And this is particularly important as we move forward with all the new AI technologies and trying to make sure that people are grounded as much as they can in terms of this is going to help you with throughput. GitHub Copilot that we have put in recently, and last year my devs wrote 150,000 lines of code with this. We're not eliminating jobs. You can just get more done and do it more effectively. And so I think articulating that vision so that people don't go off and start looking for new jobs because they think they're going to lose their job is really important too.
Oh my gosh, I want to go off script a little bit. You just mentioned you rolled out Copilot, so that's all about the AI and everything. What was that like?
Luckily, I work with some very keen, very smart, and also a lot of really young people that are going to go and explore on their own. So giving them the tools and the internal instances that we have of ChatGPT that we're putting in, Copilot, GitHub Copilot, like we are constantly putting in Hebia, which is one that our investment teams are using, a knowledge management system. But it's also, how do we trial these things? I just ran a hackathon last week where we had 110 people that self-organized into teams. Actually, this is the first hackathon that we've done where people in the dev teams teamed up with businesses and business partners across our total fund management and our trading groups to try to come up with the agentic AI solutions that could drive outcomes for the business. And it was amazing what came up. One team actually had 16 agents that were playing off each other. And then when I see all this stuff and I'm like, quick, how are we going to put this in? Where's funding going to come from? What sandboxes do we need? What cyber challenges are we going to come up with? How are we going to get the business on side? How am I going to sell this? How are we going to carve out people that can work on this stuff? So it's really constantly pivoting and adjusting as you see things that are really good and going to move us forward, but putting all the bumpers around, okay, people are not going to lose their jobs. We're not going to save money from putting this stuff in. And so then it's constantly reframing for people what the evolution of technology looks like. But I also need to mimic that I am using these tools myself, and it is helping me in my day-to-day work.
So I have to quickly ask, would you say it's easier to implement AI and bring it into the organization because it's buying from the top to want AI? Because some organizations are just struggling with leadership, believing that AI should be in the organization.
Rolling out a new tech and data plans without AI in it would have probably been a really big no-no with our board. I have found that sort of the big hammer looking for the nail of AI, like what's the big AI that's going to come in and solve all of our problems? And I'm like, what problem are you trying to solve? Because there's not just one AI that's going to solve everything. It's also articulating for our businesses, what is the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And then we will find, is it an RPA solution? Is it actually some sort of digital tool that you need? And where along the continuum do we actually fit?
I love that.
But then it's also upskilling our teams, right? Like, I have a big responsibility. I don't think anybody's going to get another job without having some use of AI. And it's my job to upskill our team. We've got a lot of people that have been in the organization for 25 and 30 years too. And so I have a big diverse workforce that I need to keep moving forward to.
So let's talk about skills. When we think about the future of work, it's no longer the future of work. It's now the new world of work, right? Because we're living it. Actually, the conference you spoke on a few years back, it was the robotics one when we're talking about wow, you're already doing that in BMO, and this is way before COVID. But when we think about the future skills, or look at the room now, and they say AI can do so much. The first question people ask is, am I going to lose my job? And you just mentioned upskilling. What are the future skills that you would say, look, in this day of AI and the future we're looking into, these are the top 3 skills we should be thinking about having in order to build our brands as change leaders?
That's a great question. It's like, how do you navigate ambiguity with clarity and agility? So that's super duper important. As we move forward, empathy is really important, and listening, understanding how we're going to put this in, and back to the, how is this going to affect me? It's not the same for everyone, and different groups are having different feelings about things. Like, is trading actually going to be going to some AI agent? Are we going to outsource things? It's not just AI, it's what is the core knitting of your business and what can be outsourced or offshored or anything else. So I don't think that's any different than any of the change we've seen in our careers, right? We keep going through these like Centralization, decentralization. Like we've all seen all of these ups and downs and flavor of the week. And every time you get a new exec, they want to do something new and put their mark on things. So I don't think that empathy or the ability to listen and translate it is any different. I think digital fluency through hands-on learning, being willing to try new things, to model for your teams that you are leaning in, get smart people that are under you, work with you to teach you things, and carving at the time. Like this ongoing learning that you've all committed to today, I think is super important. And so for me, it's okay. I need to be locked in a room with somebody talking at me, or I'm going to be on this device and that device and all over the place, but I need to learn myself. So I think it's really taking the time to move forward in that space too.
I'm going to go to questions soon to give folks time to ask questions. But when you think about a change leader, and we're talking to change leaders here, and you hire change leaders, what would you say defines a great change leader?
Yeah, I think driving meaningful business outcomes is the first thing that I would look at. I think mobilizing people through uncertainty is really important. How you can stay resilient and grounded. And, there's going to be constant resistance that happens through your journey. And how do you stay grounded and help people through that journey? I also think that being the connector and the translator between the business and tech, or between the different groups that you work with, is super important. The value, I'm working with the best change leader that I've ever worked with right now at Teachers. And she has an innate ability to get into a room and you probably wouldn't know what her role was. And she understands what the business is going through, what our teams are going through, and not only can empathize with them and put herself in their shoes, but she understands the journey that people are going on and why we need tech to work or what we need to do. I think being curious and humble is also really important.
I like that, being curious as well. Not being tied to a role or tied to a title, or I have to do things this way. And it's really about connecting. I can see that translating really well, perhaps in, say, within the organization, and you're building yourself internally within the organization. But how do you translate that if you go for your role or interview, or as you build your brand?
Leaning into different things, and I alluded to it before, is that I've been in lots of different industries, from not-for-profit to banking, aviation, that sort of thing. Just being generally curious about the world around you and a lifelong learner will lend very well, asking a lot of questions.
Yes, it reflects how you show up at an interview, right? Because you just never know what questions will turn up.
No, totally.
Okay, let's turn to the room. Question there.
We're going through a multi-year transformation with our systems. What tips can you give us for trying to prevent change fatigue and ensuring that people stay motivated and excited about this?
Gosh, yeah. There will be a group that will always be motivated and excited, and there will be a group that absolutely is fighting this tooth and nail. I think that going back to the purpose and what's in it for them, why we're doing this, and re-articulating the end goal is this is where we're trying to get to. I think consistency in communication. Do they hear from you every 2 weeks on a Friday afternoon? Here's my message for the teams on where we're going, what we did this period, what we're looking for next period, how can you help, right? Like I think building some of this in so that when people get the communication, it starts washing over them as something that they just expect is part of it. Long multi-year implementations are painful for everybody involved, but also how do you have fun with it, right? It's keeping people excited and motivated, celebrate the wins when you get them. How can you do things differently and put a little energy back in things, which is really hard to do. I hope it's not an ERP system. It is, yeah, I nailed it. I knew with her look. So I was like, oh, I feel that. But yeah, I was trying to put some energy back in it. And I think it's articulating what good is going to come out of it at the end too. And hopefully people believe it. Hopefully you get it done. But yeah.
What I like about what you said was every 2 weeks, just send communications. I don't know about you all. Sometimes being on a change project and you find, no, we don't have anything to say, so let's not say anything. Let's keep quiet. Yeah. We don't need to share anything yet. So there's always that feeling that until we have something big before we share, and they undermine the value of that consistency and momentum. I remember this project this was way before Teams and COVID. Remember when we had to do conference calls?
Oh, yeah.
That's how you came into meetings. And in this particular meeting, so I'd convinced the sponsor that we needed to have business update meetings bi-weekly. I was like, we would have this meeting and said, nobody's asking any questions. But you'd have 40 people attend every week. And you could hear the way attending, because at the end of those conference calls, you hear the click. And he would have been like, but why aren't they saying anything? Why aren't they answering questions? But every 2 weeks.
It's because they're playing video games. Yeah.
They were in the office then. So this was in the office. But every 2 weeks, they will turn up. So people want that momentum. They want that information. They may not respond in the way you think. You may think they're not reading your emails, but it sure helps.
I agree. And I think that for lack of recognition in organizations, like when you are doing work, you also need to talk about your work. And the COO that I just reported to, who retired, she had a recognition score on this test that we do, sort of a personality test of 1 out of 100, and felt that it was a bit braggadocious if she talked about the good work that the technology organization was doing. And so she would downplay it. And what we learned after she left was that nobody had a clue what we were doing. And so it's not in a, I'm so great, look at what I'm doing. It's, this is the value we are driving for you. We have heard that this is your priority, and we are doing this in partnership to execute on the enterprise vision. And so putting those together and talking about it consistently, don't assume that anybody else is talking about the great work that you're doing and the importance of these tools if you're not doing it. So take the driver's seat in terms of keeping people on point. And I think that's one thing that if I could look back in time, things are messy, things are bumpy, it's never gonna go the way that you assume. So change is one of the most important things in a project, and it can sink it and it can absolutely make it fly. So own it, own the messaging, own the communication, own bringing people together. And if you don't have anything to say, shorten the meeting. It doesn't have to drag on forever. Just get it out. Anybody have any challenges? Are there any things that we need to know about?
Keeping the momentum going.
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah. How do we, as change leaders, build our brand when the people that we're working with don't understand what we're doing?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Small question.
No, I think it's absolutely relevant. I think until people have had something that has miserably failed potentially, that they don't really get the power of change. My change leader is absolutely, don't want to be anywhere without her, because she adds value to my life, and not just in a change context, but she understands how the project's flowing. She watches the dynamics. She goes out and offers things that other people don't. I brought her along. We were doing value creation work for a portfolio company in London. And I was like, hey, what's your change communication? And they were like, how do we go back to stakeholders and talk to them about the value that we are driving within our platforms going forward? And she put a whole deck together around communication and how do you keep that cycle going. And so the more you can see things that are going to potentially impact people, the risks, how you keep people out of jail, literally and figuratively, and then just be present. And the more that you understand and can connect the dots, the more value and the more you have a seat at the table. Change is a very underrated profession. Keep showing up, keep being in those meetings, put your neck out, try new things, because the more you can be that glue, be that connector, and don't get discouraged. When I finished management consulting and I was looking to move back from Boston to Toronto, I had an interview at a local airline here in town, and I had just come off of working at 4 airlines, and I did a project for Hamilton Sunstrand on my own engine company, and I met with this airline that happens to be in downtown, and HR said to me, like, I don't see the relevance of your background to what we do here. And I was like, really? Seriously? But that's the same sort of thing that you guys are probably seeing at work, right? And so it's just, how do you articulate the value? How do you paint a picture of when things don't go well? And how do you bring people together at the beginning of projects and guide this through, bringing everybody along, the PMs, the businesses, everybody else, and all the relevant stakeholders? Paint the picture. Yeah.
I love that. And that's such a great note to end on, because it's about bringing the value and not being focused on the title and the role and the name, but really the value you bring, because you can't go wrong when you bring value.
No.
If somebody can say, if I bring Michelle into this, or if I bring David into this, it's going to make a difference. And automatically you build your brand as that change leader.
Absolutely.
On that note, a round of applause for Michelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Change Leadership Conversations. Be sure to hit the follow button, leave us a review, and share this podcast with your team or fellow change leaders, because leading change is better when we do it together.